What has happened, everybody? James Hancock here. I'm back to review the Season 2 premiere of Arcane, which dropped this morning on Netflix. Sadly, Netflix only gave us the first 3 episodes, with the rest of the show coming next Saturday as well as the following Saturday, but not to worry. If these first 3 episodes are any indication of the level of quality we can expect from the rest of the season, I suspect the Season 2 climax or finale is going to be one hell of a barn burner. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's slow down and start with the basics, because for me, whether you're just a hardcore League of Legends fanatic or just an all-around animation fan, for my money, Arcane is one of the few shows that's in the Hall of Fame of great video game adaptations. And sadly, that's a very short list of shows and movies. Most video game adaptations, let's be honest, they completely fucking suck. Like we saw Borderlands this summer. Borderlands, great gaming franchise, terrible movie. And as far as my own gaming is concerned, when it comes to League of Legends, I'm a total casual. I played a few dozen matches back in 2010 when I started to notice a lot of my friends in World of Warcraft were jumping ship and bleeding over to League of Legends. I was like, God damn it, like we have like a raid to do. Like, what is all this League of Legends bullshit? I never really got into the format of like the 5v5. I have no idea how much the game might have changed or not changed in the basically 14 years since then. But I have a little brother who's 21 who still plays, and for all you normies out there who aren't into League of Legends or gaming or esports, just to give you an idea of just how popular this game truly is, back in 2019 they had this online tournament, and 100 million people watched it, and there at one point it peaked with 44 million concurrent viewers watching it at the same time. I mean, that's fucking insane. Like 44 million people watching something at the same time, that's bigger than the Oscars. Like, we're basically talking about something that's like almost half as popular as like the Super Bowl here in the United States. But that insane level of popularity can place a huge burden on a show when it comes to animators and filmmakers and writers delivering a satisfying show, because as we've all seen, gamers have really strong, intense opinions, and they're well-earned. I mean, if you invest hundreds of hours of your life into a particular game, well then, surprise, surprise, you're going to develop strong opinions about it. And if you deliver a piece of shit like Borderlands, well then they're going to eat you alive. They're going to tear you limb from limb. But the miracle is they actually really like Arcane. Once again, I'm a casual when it comes to the game. I can't claim to be completely invested with the fan base, but the numbers do not lie. And I think a big part of the success of Arcane is that whether you're whether you love the game or not, it's just a kick-ass steampunk show, or like a steampunk show on steroids, where you have badass heroes and badass villains beating the crap out of each other as they try and decide what kind of world they wish to live in. And that's a pretty basic premise, but you basically have like the haves and the have-nots, and they're gonna fight. And there's some more subtle nuances to the characters and divided loyalties and that sort of thing. But I guess what really sells the show for me is the really intense love-hate relationship between two sisters, Vi and Jinx, who find themselves on opposite sides of this bloody conflict. And they're voiced by Haley Steinfeld and Ella Purnell. Can't believe how much Haley Steinfeld has come along since the days of True Grit with the Coen brothers. But Vi and Jinx are the heart of the show. But if I'm being honest, I watched this show for Jinx. She's just a fantastic villain. She's got a great look. She's got cool looking hair and eyes and that sort of thing. She kicks much ass in combat. And she's just a really easy, diabolical villain to root for. And if I'm being honest, I think the character of Vi is kind of boring. She's very pure and very noble and very idealistic, but unless Vi's in combat, I'm not that interested in the character. It's Jinx who has this kind of this incredibly wounded, psychotic quality that I find to be irresistible. And there's so many shows and movies these days that completely drop the ball with their villains because they don't want to let their villains actually be villains or do evil things. Like a show like Penguin, I feel like is a great example, where they're letting the villains be villains. And I think Jinx, she basically steals each and every scene in which she appears, so much so that I don't really give a damn about any of the other characters, because when it comes to video games and animation, the characters have to look cool. And it's amazing how many shows and how many games get this wrong, especially in the world of video games. If you're going to be basically wearing the skin of a character for days, weeks, months, perhaps years as you play a game over and over again, you have to like the way the character looks, and obviously it helps if you can kind of design your character as well. But it's amazing how many video games get this wrong, where it's like you're stuck in the skin of a protagonist where they look like a total douchebag, and you're like, all right, well, I don't want to play this game. I don't want to spend hundreds of hours of my life in this person's skin. But Jinx, she looks fucking evil and cool and cute at times. But the animators on this show just knocked it out of the park when it comes to her character design, and I keep coming back because I just want to watch her beat the crap out of people. And what I'm about to say might sound a little dismissive, and it might sound like an outright critique or criticism, but hear me out before you jump down my throat. But I don't really care about this show's plot. I don't really care about the great majority of the show's characters, but what really makes me love the show is that pretty much every single episode, there's always one, if not two or three scenes where the music, the action, and the visuals, they all come together in this overall harmonious effect that I can only describe as intoxicating, because it's violent, it's stylish. You have these incredibly creative character designs as they're all engaging in some of the most exhilarating but also brutal combat. It's just pure animation euphoria where you feel compelled to chomp down a fistful of gummies and just trip balls and enjoy the ride. And if that sounds like I'm only enjoying the most superficial ingredients of the show, you might be right, but this is some of the most gorgeous, eye-popping animation that I've seen in years, vastly superior to most of the bullshit cranked out for kids here in the United States. This show's made by French animation studio Fortiche, or Fortiche. I don't know how they pronounce it. I can't pronounce French at all. But it's under the supervision of Riot Games, the company behind League of Legends. And I think the real glue between the two companies is the show's creators, Christian Link and Alex Yee, who have devoted, at this point, like over a decade of their lives to this world and these characters that they love and adore. And Christian Link and Alex Yee, they know this world backwards and forwards. They know what makes these characters tick, especially the characters Vi, who was introduced back in 2012, and Jinx in 2013. I was not playing the game at that time, but this is all crap that I looked up online. And even if I have my own little nitpicky grievances against some of the plot lines and some of the characters, what's truly undeniable about this show is that it's made by people who get it. They understand why League of Legends has been this international phenomenon for 15 years, and this is something that so many other franchises get wrong, like the Lord of the Rings, the Rings of Power, where they hire these dumbasses who don't even like the source material or its fans, and yet somehow they expect the showrunners to deliver a hit. Arcane's a hit. It's because it's made by fanatics. Like, these are people who drink the Kool-Aid. They love the world of League of Legends, and they've been given the time, the money, and the resources they need to get it right. And this incredibly fruitful collaboration between Fortiche and Riot Games goes all the way back to 2013 when they made the music video Get Jinxed. And I'd argue that like the music video / video game cinematic flavor or qualities of this show, that remains the show's best asset, because when this show really cuts loose, it basically turns into the best video game cutscene you could possibly imagine. And for me, that's enough. And when you compare these action sequences, which are absolutely made with an adult sensibility, but when you compare them to some of the movies being made at DreamWorks or Universal or Disney or Pixar or whatever, it's almost like this animation studio is not even fighting fair. Like, they are heads and shoulders above what so many of their peers are doing in the United States. And I hope that some American animators who are like, just getting started now, like, you know what, fuck this family-friendly bullshit. I want to make a show like Arcane. And over the last decade or so, there have been a lot of factors contributing to Netflix's inevitable victory in the streaming wars. And at this point, it's like, Max, Disney Plus, Paramount Plus, all the other platforms, like they're basically like picking up the crumbs, like all the leftovers that are left behind by Netflix. And I think one of these key drivers in Netflix's success, and obviously there are a ton of factors, but they love animation. It is a home for animation. Probably Crunchyroll is the only like real rival when it comes to a love and affection for animation. And Netflix takes a lot of turns at bat, and every once in a while, they give us something that feels very groundbreaking and very fresh and very original, like something like when Warren Ellis gave us 3 seasons of Castlevania. Like, that show fucking ruled. But Arcane is just, it's special. And once again, it feels new. There's so many franchises in America right now which feel so stale. Like, they might have had, historic entries 30, 40 years ago. I'm talking about things like, Star Trek or Star Wars or whatever the case might be. But it's like, their best days are like, far, far in the past. But because Netflix has had to build a lot of their franchises from scratch, they all feel brand spanking new. They have that new car smell. And Netflix knows they have something special in their hands with Arcane, which is why they're relaxing their binge model for the show and rolling it out over a couple of weeks. And I suspect that over like the next 3, 4, 5 years, anytime Netflix has a big like premium prestige show, they will always drop the binge model. I know some people really love the binge model and they'll wait for something to be out in its entirety before they binge it. But when it comes to conversation, awareness, traffic, etc., a slow, steady drip is definitely advantageous to these giant platforms. And it's also really cool seeing how Netflix is allowing the show to live and breathe beyond just their kind of strict streaming model, because they're allowing a physical media release on Blu-ray through G-Kids. And G-Kids, they're one of the best distributors in all of animation. They've distributed a ton of Hayao Miyazaki movies here in America. They're just awesome. When it comes to like taste and prestige and just like sophistication, G-Kids is definitely fighting the good fight when it comes to animation for adults. But I just love how Netflix, they've kind of got like a bad reputation for like not liking theaters, not liking physical media. Like, they want everybody just to subscribe to Netflix and find all their content there. But for a movie to kind of like live and breathe and have a lasting impact on the culture, it can't just feel like, like YouTube videos on steroids. Like I love YouTube. I consume a ton of content on YouTube, but overall the content is, it's disposable, and you watch it and it kind of goes in one ear and out the other, and you kind of forget about it. But if you want a show or a movie to last, well, then you have to let people kind of take ownership of it or share it with a large crowd. Like just having movies and shows available on a streaming service, I think ultimately makes them, I don't know, how can I say this? Because obviously there are exceptions to every generalization, but I just don't feel like they have as much of a lasting impact on the culture unless you allow the show or movie to live and breathe beyond something like Netflix or Max or whatever. Now, I've been ranting quite a bit at this point without saying anything particularly harsh or negative about the show, and I do have my grievances, but they pale in comparison to the joy that I feel during the really good action sequences. But I'll say there's some characters and some subplots and some scenes that are just, they're so dull and so forgettable. They're gone from my mind the moment I see them. But I can totally just shrug them off, because I always know that if I'm patient for just a few minutes, the show will always reward me with some balls to the wall insanity that is light years beyond anything else going on in animation right now. I mean, this is just the gold standard when it comes to animation, and it really feels like the show's only competition in the world of big budget animation is itself. It's competing with the earlier episodes, saying how can we top what we've already done? How can we surpass what we've already done? Because episode 3 of season 2 has 2 sequences where oh shit, these are some of the best scenes that you've given us yet. Early on in episode 3, without giving away any spoilers, there's a scene where it's like a motion comic, but calling it a motion comic doesn't quite cut it, because if you like comics and you've looked at motion comics, they're basically looking at it like a PDF on steroids. This is like a comic book flavor, but it still feels like balls to the wall, kick-ass animation. I don't even have the appropriate vocabulary to describe it, because I'd never seen an animation sequence quite like it. And so, yeah, I'll just say that it's chocolate for the eyes. I loved every second of it, because this is one of those rare shows that just absolutely has a unique style of storytelling with so much swagger and so much confidence, on top of the characters having so much swagger and so much confidence. I never get tired of watching these badasses just stride into a room holding weapons that are 10 times larger than they ought to be, and just sneering at each other before they just proceed to rip each other apart with filmmaking techniques that I don't even know what they're called, because I've never seen them before. The way they'll transition between, or kind of cross-cut between one scene and another. It's not enough just to cross-cut. Almost like the whole world will have to shift to take you over to the same. Oh my God, y'all are really trying to just expand the form of what animation is even capable of, and that is just an incredibly thrilling, exhilarating experience to have when you're just tired of so much of the other bullshit out there that just feels so stale and so familiar. And I really think that when it comes to video game adaptations, this is going to be the gold standard for years to come. I know a lot of people really like The Last of Us, and The Last of Us is a pretty good show. It's definitely got its episodes, definitely got its moments, but I don't think The Last of Us is anywhere near as exhilarating to watch is Arcane, because Arcane passes with flying colors the most important test when it comes to a video game adaptation. Would you rather watch the show or movie in question, or would you rather play the game? Because when I was watching Fallout this past spring, I was enjoying Fallout, but every single minute I spent watching Fallout, I was like, you know what, I'd rather be playing the game. And so ultimately I ended up bailing on the show and just playing Fallout 3 and Fallout 4 and Fallout New Vegas and just having an absolute blast. I mean, Fallout New Vegas is vastly superior to that goddamn show, but never at any point while I was watching Arcane was like, you know what, maybe I ought to download League of Legends and take it for a spin. I was just enjoying the kick-ass brawls and so on and so forth. So I feel like that is always the standard by which I will judge a video game adaptation. Is it good enough where you can put the game out of your brain? Because a really good game, a really good game that's a very active, immersive experience just gives you a completely different experience from watching a show, which is a very passive, kind of laid back experience. And I like my brain to be firing on all cylinders. And a really good game, it's tough for a show to compete with a really good game. It's just a completely different medium. In any case, I feel like I'm starting to ramble about broader topics that go beyond just this show itself. But if you've never seen Arcane, definitely take it for a spin. And if you find yourself initially kind of not quite getting into it, like I said, just be patient. You're going to see some shit that you have never seen before, and it is just fucking awesome. So congratulations to everybody involved. I'm loving season 2 so far. I can't wait to see the next 3 episodes next Saturday. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. And what is the Hall of Fame of the great video game adaptations? Which ones have really gotten it right? Which ones can pass that test where you'd rather watch the show or the movie as opposed to playing it? Because the list of games or list of game adaptations that fail is so much longer. Whether you're talking about that terrible Assassin's Creed movie, or well, I don't want to get sidetracked. Maybe I should do a video of like the top 10 worst video game adaptations that I've at least seen so far. There's a long list of them, and yeah, the Hall of Shame is alive and well. But Arcane is in the Hall of Fame, and some might even argue that it reigns supreme in that Hall of Fame. But I'm going to wrap this sucker up. Hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Please consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel, hitting that notification bell. Hope everybody has a great weekend, but more importantly, as always, onwards and upwards.